I'm Stuart, and I am 14 years old. When I was in high school, I had a lot of things going on back then. I studied and I attended to private clubs. I even had few friends, but never hang out with them much due to the fact that I never really liked spending time outside. I went to class and I met this girl. We'll call her Leanne. Me and Leanne had a lot in common. We love video games and movies. We even had some occasional matters is something that we cannot describe it clearly. We usually go out and we like to eat. We eat McDonald's. There's a nearby McDonald's near our school. We usually go there on weekends, but mostly after school, we sometimes grab a meal and then we take it to go. And then we head to her house. The first time I've met her, she asked me out. I know a great big place where we can hang out, and that will be my home, she said. It was barely a school night, and I refused. I told her that I had to study for tomorrow, because tomorrow we were having exams. She said, "We can study together. How's that?" I replied, "Alright, sure. As long as we don't stay up too late, because I have to get home." I went to visit her house, and her house was empty. There was no one home. I asked, "Do you live with someone?" She replied, "No, they're not here." I asked, "Why?" She replied, "You want to go into my room?" She never answered the question, so I just ignored it and forgot about it. I entered her room and it was normal. There was a TV, a bed, and a computer. We used her computer to study. We studied together for about 20 minutes and I started to get hungry because I haven't eaten yet. She offered me to eat anything from her fridge. I asked, "What do you have?" She replied, "There's plenty of dishes I can make you." I went to go check what was she making in the kitchen. She says, "There are plenty of foods to eat. Just choose the food and I'll make it. What dish would you like today?" I replied, "Whatever suits you. Yeah, I'll let you choose it." She started cooking and I started waiting. I waited in the room for about 10 minutes. I came out later just to use the toilet. I was in there for a few minutes. I later came out to find out that she already finished the meal, and I saw what she was making. Pasta. I asked, "Where did you learn to cook?" She replied, "My mother taught me." I asked her, "Where is your mother?" She replied back to me in a strange personality or a strange way, but she tried to act normal. She says that her mother has gone somewhere. I asked her, "Where has she gone?" She didn't respond to that. She told me to sit down at the table and eat before the food gets cold. I obeyed, but I still couldn't brush that question off. I sat down at the table and she sat down next to me. We ate the pasta. The pasta tasted really amazing and she was a very good cook. After a few minutes, we finished our food and then we went back into our room to study. We studied for almost 10 minutes and then she started putting her hand on me. She put her hand on my arm and then a few minutes later, she raised it down. She started to touch my belly and then she raised it down to my crotch. I told her, "What are you doing?" She replied, "Nothing. I'm just touching you. You don't like it?" I replied, Um, are you okay?" She didn't answer, but for myself, I did liked it. I let her touch me for the next few minutes until I knew that it was getting late for me. I told her I would talk to her soon and didn't even bother giving her any information of mine, any contact information. So I went home and studied just for 5 minutes. I studied there for 5 minutes, but I still couldn't get my mind off how the way she touched me. To me, it felt good. The next day, I haven't seen her at school, but during lunchtime she arrived, but she was late. I asked her, "Why were you late?" She replied, "I overslept. I'm sorry." After that, I just kept thinking about what she did to me. I couldn't control those thoughts, but I had the urge to ask her to do that again, but this time even more. I couldn't control myself. I asked her, "Do you remember what happened yesterday?" She replied, "Yeah, does that bother you?" I replied, "No." She then replied, "Oh, okay. How was it?" I couldn't control myself. I just told her straight away. I told her, "I want you to do that to me again." I never had anyone do such things like that, and I never felt something tingly inside me. "Do you think you can do that again?" She then replied, "Okay, we'll meet again after school." I waited. After school, I immediately head to her hangout spot. She hangs out in front of the school gates. I found her. I then talked to her. I said, "Do you think that we can go to your house again? Are your parents going to be home?" She replied, "Don't worry, they don't usually come home." Without thinking, I immediately head to her home to study with her and to do that thing that she did to me. I couldn't control myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew that I was doing something very wrong. We stopped by her place and we went into her room. We started studying for almost about 20 minutes until she did it again. She put her hand on my crotch, but she started tightening her hand on me. She unbuckled my pants and pulled them down until we heard a creaky door open. She says, "Quick, they're coming. Pull your pants back up." Her dad arrived, and he didn't look very happy when he found us. He was calling for her name, and he looked very angry. After he saw us in her room, with my pants already pulled back up, he didn't notice us what we were doing, so he just said, "Who is this Leanne? What is he doing here?" Leanne replied, "Nothing, Dad. He's here to study. He's a friend." Her father looked very angry and very alcoholic. He looked like he was in a very bad condition. I couldn't describe it. His eyes were all red and full of tear. His nose had a lot of mucus. He even smelled like cigarettes. After that, I went home. I ignored what happened. I just told her dad, "I'm very sorry to bother. I was already finished. Nice meeting you, sir." I went home and I already got ready for bed. I couldn't just think of what her dad was like. I was scared. I couldn't forget the face of Leanne's father. He looked really mad. I fell asleep, and the next day I tried to look for Leanne. I found her. She was in well conditions. I asked about her father. She replied, "There's nothing. He's just a drug addict. He's an alcoholic who likes to hang out a lot." I asked about her mother. She explained her mother was being abused by her father. And so she told me that her father killed her. I was in shock. I couldn't get those words off me. After that, she told me if she can come over to my house. I invited her in. We've been studying in there and we were safe. But the only thing she was worrying, and I was also worrying, is about her father. After that, we hung out. We started talking. We even went to her house too, when her father wasn't home. There was a few times where her father was home, but we kept quiet in her room. After that, sometimes we even sneak into her bedroom while I just stayed down on the floor, just to avoid any detections. After that, we just barely did the same. We didn't bother about that. Well, that's a conclusion that we'll never forget. But until then, we have been dating for almost a few weeks. It never stopped us, not even Leanne's father. He never stopped me from dating her. We sometimes go into her bedroom just to do fun activities. We play video games and watch TV while her father wasn't home. Sometimes her father was home and we kept quiet. She even locked her own bedroom door in case he tries to barge in. We went after school and sometimes hang out in her room. After that, we kept quiet. We know that she can barely hear him just shouting randomly. Well, it didn't stop us. We were in love. I love Leanne. Leanne and I have been hanging out in her room while doing all sorts of activities. We sometimes read. We sometimes like to play. We even had sex. One time, after school, I actually asked her if she can suck my cock for just a few minutes. We went into her room and I actually had some strange feelings that today was gonna be different. I even heard banging on the wall, but Leanne didn't hear anything since she was down there. I tried to ignore the banging, but they just got louder and louder. I asked her, "Is everything alright?" She says, "There's nothing wrong. Just sit back and enjoy it." About 40 seconds later, I heard footsteps running towards Leanne's room. I got Leanne off of me and I pulled my pants back up. It was a banging at her door. It just got aggressive. She started to freak out. She says, "What are we going to do?" I said, "Let's run. Now." We opened her window and crawled out. Her window was near a roof, so that means we could land. We can safely jump down the roof, and we did. We ran off and got on my bike. I rode back to my house. After that, Leanne couldn't take it anymore. I called the police. The police came over to Leanne's house, but by the time they arrived, Leanne's father committed suicide. We don't know the whole thing about Leanne's father, but we only know that whatever happened to him, he was at a very bad site. I invited Leanne to move in with us, and she packed her stuff. The police already cleared the house, took the body away. By the time after that, we finally graduated. Leanne lives with me now, and we are now a happy couple. She still wouldn't explain why her father was treating her and why her father killed her mother. That's just another mystery that we will never find out, because she's been living with her father for almost a decade, and it happened long ago when she was a little girl. All she ever wanted was just a happy family, but her father just told her, everything will be alright.